some of this may be a little redundant, but Ramona is going to get into a lot more detail and a lot of the kind of technical capabilities of the tool. We think that this is something unique and different than anything you've ever experienced. So we're pretty excited to share it with you. And everybody here should know that Ramona Floyd's going to lead this training. I'm going to stay on to kind of help answer questions and think about use cases related to the hotel environment. But we partnered with a company called TractIQ and Social Explorer, who developed this tool for us based on the parameters that we set forth. So, and Ramona works for that group, and she's going to kind of take it from here. So with that, Ramona, go for it.
If you can bear with me for just a second while I let people in on the invite. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yep.
Great. All right.
Ramona, you may want to record if you didn't already start it.
I have. So yes,
Okay,
I am
awesome.
recording this session so that everyone can see that later and review any of the things that we're going over today. And I may have to pop over and let folks into the meeting, but in the meantime, let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to review the application layout and where to find tools and features. So for example, over here on the upper left-hand corner, right next to the LARC logo, is the search bar. And if you click into that search bar under hotel, the search bar allows you to search by an asset name or address. Now, please note that even though you get options as you type an address name, so let's say you'll start to get some names, but generally speaking, the hotel name needs to be an exact to match. So it may just be easier to use the hotel address, but this under hotel is where you will search for a particular asset by name or address. And then if you toggle over to location, you can search for any address or geography. So you could say, San Antonio, you can any sort of address, geography, and that is particularly useful when you're looking at an unimproved land or other property locations. You can also save a location for future reference. So let's just type in an address here just so I can show you how that works. Say 837 North Burleson Boulevard. Once that address pops up, you can just click on that. And when you click on that, there's a little caret here. It will take you to that location. But under here, you can say save to my places. And then it will give you save to my places, save. And if you click over here, that address will always be available to you. So now it's in your saved places. If you just want to have a list of properties, assets that you want to be able to click on, you can do that here. You can also drop a pin. So if you're, this icon right here allows you to drop a pin. So you can just sort of drop a pin anywhere and it will immediately take you to that location with the default radius analysis, which I'll explain in a moment. And you can just sort of drop a pin anywhere, click on that pin, and that will take you to that location. So down here on the lower right-hand corner is the legend. So you can expand that legend. Now the menu just, oh, well, actually, I want to do this first. So the menu just below, we're going to click out of here. This menu here on the upper left is the data, geography, and options. So the menu just below the search bar shows you the data variables on the map. In this case, the default setting is the economic activity indicator per room, which is essentially the GDP. And usually when you go into the application itself, and you just first open up the application, you'll see, again, here's the default. It's the economic activity indicator per room. It's usually on a state level. And the blue, these tiles, this blue logo there, I mean, this blue square there allows you to change the data. So once you're you can choose any number of demand variables to display on the map. So you can choose up to 5 at once. So we have economic activity, retail sales per room. You could do RevPAR, and we also have projections for these. We have economic activity, retail sales, office employment and meeting space, leisure demand, and we also have 5-year projections for that data. So let's say you can click up to 5 of that for your base data. You zoom in. As you zoom in, you'll see the geography level becomes more granular. And these bubbles that you're looking at, these indicate the clusters of assets. So these are all hotels under construction and convention center area, which I'm going to show you over here in the legend.
Yeah, one thing for everybody to keep in mind is that this tool has loaded in every hotel in the country, every hotel under construction in the country, and every convention center in the country. So all of the data that you're seeing is what we call inventory adjusted. It's all on a per room basis. So where you see areas where there's no data, because it's a gray area, there's no data, it's because there are no rooms. So there can't be any economic activity per room if there's no rooms. There can't be any office employment per room if there's no rooms, et cetera. So that should be helpful as you guys think through the tool, but it gives you a good sense of some of the data, and as Ramona will walk through, she'll help you continue to understand how you can turn different layers on and off and drive through how granular the data really gets.
So when we are in this change data, you can click on any number of these variables, and then once you click this little X, you close that menu. And like I said, you can go down over here. This is your geography level. So generally speaking, census block group is going to be the most granular, and that's the best level to be on to get all of the data. As you can see in this case, we've got a cluster of 40 assets in this area. As you zoom in, those clusters open up to where those are. So you get more detail as you zoom in.
And Ramona, what might be helpful also is you see this little box showing up underneath Ramona's arrow that has all the data tied to that particular area. Bottom right-hand corner, hover is currently selected. So if she's hovering over it, that box shows up. If she switches it to click, that box will only show up if she clicks on the area.
Yeah, so if you're doing click, and then you can also click the X, that'll get you out of it as well. So again, if we go back to the primary map, and another thing to know is, like, anytime you click on this LARC logo on the left, it will take you back to the default map setting if you just want to get back to that, start from scratch. But as I said, as you zoom in, you get more granular views of the area. I'm going to click census block group so that I can really kind of get a feel for the clusters and the data that's in there. So we're going to go to Des Moines in this case. So now as we're zooming in and we're seeing more of the assets in an area, now you're looking at the census block group. We're going to go over here to the legend. Over here on the bottom right is the legend. Again, you expand that legend. The first thing that you'll see is auto adjust. Now, if you're, depending on how zoomed in you are, your data is going to, I'm going to go back to hover. Your data is going to be visible. Again, we're looking at economic activity right now per room. If you click auto adjust, it will adjust the block groups, because that's the geography we're looking at, more to the area that you're looking at. So you can get a little better differentiator among the block groups that you're looking at. So that's handy to use. You also can click on satellite view here, which gives you a satellite view of the area, so you can get a better sort of sense for what's on the ground. And you can also click this pencil icon and reduce the data opacity, and then take the satellite color off. So now you still have your color differentials, but you can get sort of a hybrid view of the area.
Ryan, can you tell me what goes into the economic, the number that's coming up? What all makes up that economic impact per room? What is that?
You're on mute.
Thank you.
No problem.
Economic activity, for lack of a better term, is GDP, but it's drilled down to the actual location site. So when you think about economic activity, it's taking into account all the transaction receipts that occur in a given block area. So that's going to be retail sales, commercial sales, household income, all of them together, and then we're adjusting it all for the amount of inventory in that area. Office employment is going to be the number of office using employees and that are stationed in that area. Retail sales is retail sales, as you can imagine. Leisure demand, we actually worked with a company called AGS, who literally for the past 25 years has been tracking annual visitation levels to 27 different categories of leisure demand drivers. They watch basically everybody who visits a given beach or museum or theater, amusement park, zoo, restaurants, hospitals, military bases, ski areas, golf clubs, list goes on and on and on. The annual visitation level, and then we've indexed that data as well. And then our RevPAR metric that you see in here is a modeled number. It's been thoroughly vetted, and we feel very confident in it. But could it be $1 or $2 off? The answer is absolutely yes, it could be. But it's going to be highly accurate. And it's basically, we've pulled a lot of data from a lot of different sources to model that out, and feel pretty confident, and it gives you a sense of where RevPAR is strongest and weakest. The other thing that you should know about all the data here is this is all 2021 data, 2021 annual data. In March, April timeframe, we will roll everything forward to 2022, but we don't have that yet.
Excellent. Makes sense. Thanks, Ryan.
Yep.
So also on this legend, so in addition to being able to kind of see the satellite or hybrid view, we also have the LARC layers themselves, which these layers show the comprehensive supply data of over 40,000 hotels. We have the hotels themselves. These layers can be turned on or off individually. We also have assets that are under construction, and we also have convention centers. So you can turn any of these on or off. You can turn the whole layer on visibly depending on what you're looking to do. And as you scroll over each one of these icons, you'll get a pop-up of the LARC score, first of all, the scale and the address. You can also click on more info, and that will give you an information panel on that particular asset and some of the statistics on there. Apparently my recording causes this to slow down.
Yeah, but while that's loading, one
Yeah.
thing that I would say is that for those of you that are curious, so this is loaded into the tool are literally every hotel in the country, as well as every hotel under construction. So it is not every hotel in the development pipeline, just those under construction, because we're leveraging that data to have the 5-year forecast. So when you look at the projected metrics over the next 5 years, you're not just taking into account how economic activity or office employment or retail sales are growing, but it's also how the room count is growing, because all of those metrics are on a per available room basis. So as the room count shifts, so will those metrics as well. So we incorporate all of that. And then from a convention center perspective, for those of you that haven't seen it, we've got over 400 convention centers across the US loaded into the tool. And because of that, you're actually able to get very granular data on where all the meeting space around the country is. I mean, we're not talking about the top 25 convention centers. It's amazing, some of the convention centers that we've got loaded in here with all the square footage that they've got available for rent. It's not going to be every wedding venue you can imagine under the sun, but everything where you might have a corporate meeting is here. Whether it's got rooms or doesn't have rooms, doesn't matter. All right, Ramona, while I talked, that panel loaded nicely.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for vamping. So, so what comes up is a panel, which I'm going to go into more detail in a moment. But essentially, you have the it gives you the data on the RevPAR, leisure demand, office employment, retail sales, economic activity, and meeting space per room, which I'm going to show you some more information on that. We also have some projections in there. You get the LARC score, you see the address. You're also looking at a 5-minute and 15-minute drive time, which I'm going to show you some more about that. But that's what happens when you're on that asset and you click more info, you get that info panel, which we're going to go back into in a moment. But before we leave the legend, I want to show you something else that's available, and that is we have the AADT traffic stats for these were published in 2021, and these come from both federal and state resources, so that we have traffic area depending on the state in various areas, so you can kind of get a sense of that. So all of these variables are available just by this legend here. You can auto adjust, sort of see a better differentiator. You can look at the satellite view. You can look at the traffic. And then you see the basically, which is essentially the supply data of the assets in the area. Also on the platform itself, I want to show you over here on the upper right, the help button at the top. If you click that, that will take you to a location where we have some videos on the application and certain features. So that will be of use to you. And also you can log in here, which will take you to Lodging Analytics Research and Consulting's research portal. So simply click there and log in. So I think what I want to do next, now that I've sort of shown you those are the basic features on the application, where things are located. You've got your search bar, your pin drops. These are the data and geography legend, and then this is the map legend itself. So when you, again, you come in, you see this by state. Now we're going to look at a use case here where let's just look at a single asset. So from here, I'm going to go to the search bar and type in 1315 Colorado Mills Parkway. And what that gives me is the Spring Hill Suites. I'm going to click that. That's going to pop up and take me immediately into a heat map that, and this info panel generally will pop up too. It's going to take me straight into a heat map that's giving me a 5 and a 15-minute drive time radius around that asset, and this info panel on the right, where you can toggle between area insights, which again, as we've looked at, includes the demand data, which is the RevPAR, leisure data, office employment, retail sales, including we have current and 5-year projections on some of this data, economic activity per room, the meeting space per room, all of this data. You can also click on place info, and that's going to give you, again, you'll have the data here so you know what you're looking at. You're looking at a 5 and 15-minute drive time. This is the address. You see the LARC score and the breakdown of that LARC score under these demand drivers: leisure, corporate, and group. Also, we'll tell you the number of rooms and the meeting space square footage of that asset.
And while Ramona's showing you that, a couple of things that I want to highlight to everybody is the LARC score is intended to be one simple metric that encapsulates all of the data around a given hotel. It's based on an index of 0 to 100. Basically, that is one simple metric that quantifies the quality of a location for hotel, for hotel use in purely objective, data-driven terms. It does not take into account the quality of an asset. A Four Seasons and a Motel 6 on the same plot of land would have the same LARC score. And then the sub scores that Ramona was just showing you, basically what those are is where we weight some of the different data points more heavily. So for leisure, we're weighting retail sales and leisure demand data points heavier than the others. For corporate transient, it's economic activity and office employment per room. And for group, it's the meeting space data points that we're weighting more heavily to give you a sense. All of the scores go from 0 to 100, with 50.0 being the average. So anything above 50 is above average across the US, anything below 50 is below average. But it's a
And-
nice, simple, easy metric to basically
Yeah.
aggregate all the data in
To
one
get a sense of
point.
capability.
So as I said, when you go into that map, the default setting is going to be a 5 and 15-minute driving radius. You have the opportunity you can change the time depending on where the location is. You can change it to up to 3 different variables at once. You could do 5, 10, 15. You can also change that to a circular radius, 1, 3, and 5 mile, if that is the metrics that you want to look at. You can also change it to walking and cycling. Generally speaking, the default is set to drive time, but you have the option to change it to whatever metrics you desire.
And I think what's nice about that is the idea that when you're looking at a hotel that's very urban, like Midtown Manhattan, anything beyond a 10-minute walk zone is probably too far for it to be a primary driver of a hotel. Whereas if you're looking at suburban Detroit, you probably have a 20-minute drive time zone that probably falls within the realm of what would be reasonable. And when you get out to Montana and some of the national park areas, it's going to be even longer. So you have the ability to figure out, based on your site and your hotel, what you think the true trade area is around that hotel.
And as we mentioned before, you can also change your base data. This is the map data. Like I said, the default is going to be economic activity. But if you come up here, and you can change this up to 5 variables at once. I kind of like these 2 with the hotel revenue, but it's up to you, whatever metrics you're looking at. You can do up to 5 at a time. And then once you've set those metrics, as you scroll over, you want to make sure that you're in census block group to get the most granular detail. And as you scroll over, you can see a pop-up that will give you the data on those metrics. So once you've, I'm gonna put this hotel back in here. So now that you've got this singular asset, I've went ahead and used all these metrics. You've got this info panel over here on the right. I just want to show you that if you click this little square with the arrow, that will open that info panel up into its own page, which is sometimes a little easier to view. So you're going to see your 5-minute, your 15-minute drive time. You can scroll down and get all of these metrics. You can also change to the place info so you can see the breakdown of that LARC score. And so once you're in this, you can then you can sort of more easily view these the metrics on this profile. You can
The other thing,
also,
Ramona, if you go back before you jump to the next thing,
Mhm.
the other thing that's pretty cool in this tool is, you may be looking at a Spring Hill Suites and you're like, hey, that's an upscale hotel. I don't need every room in that 5-minute trade area in this data analysis, because there's going to be rooms that are not competitive with that upscale hotel. So you can actually literally just select upscale. And what that will do is it changes the filter. So instead of using all the hotel rooms in that 5-minute trade area, now you're only using just the upscale rooms. And you can also do that for the different brands or brand families, your ability to really narrow it down into what the data that's most relevant for your existing hotel is, or your development hotel.
so you can place a filter on this and see, now we're looking Marriott upscale. Now you're looking at basically data points to data points. So in addition to the ability to get the info panel, so that gives you the information on that singular asset. So now you have information on that one hotel. let's say that now what you'd like to do is you'd like to compare a couple of different assets. So I'm going to go back. And in this case, we're going to look at a few hotels. We're going to create a comparison list, which is another feature that you have. I'm going to get rid of some of these windows. So again, we're going to go up here in the search bar under hotel, and we're going to look at the Roadway Inn, Fort Pierce. And let's look at this one. It's 7050 Okeechobee Road. And that again is going to take you to a 15-minute drive time. And then now that you have this location over here on the left, you can add to comparison list. So you're going to click that. And let's say as we're zooming in, we're going to see some other assets in the area. So we're going to add a couple of, here's another one. We're going to add this one. So you click more info. You add that to your comparison list. You zoom in, you see, let's say, let's look at some that are outside. Here's another Roadway Inn in Fort Pierce. So
that's the original one.
No, it's a different one.
Oh, okay.
So we've got, we're going to add that to the comparison list. So now we've got 3, and when you're looking at a comparison list, you can look at up to 3 side by side, but you can add 8 assets to the list, and you can just sort of toggle back and forth. So let's say for right now, we've got 3 of these. We're going to compare insights. So you're going to go over here, compare insights. That's going to open up this panel. And now you're looking at 2 different, this Roadway Inn is at 7050 Okeechobee. This one's at 2601 Federal Highway. It's interesting to be able to see how the LARC score is different for these 2 locations. So this is going to give you a comparison analysis. You can also, again, you're looking at 5, you can toggle between 5-minute and 15-minute drive times. You can also perform that scale and brand filter as you did before. Say you want to look at the same scale or brand. And
The other thing, go ahead, Ramona.
No, go ahead. This just allows you to see those demand variables on a side-by-side comparison. Go ahead, Ryan.
And the other thing that you can do with this, because you can pull up to 8 properties within into this comparison list, you can basically take a look at a comp set. You know, your hotel versus its competitive set from STR. Get a sense. Okay, my hotel is running at 100% RevPAR penetration index. Well, you can get a LARC score index, right? What's my LARC score relative to those same competitors? And if your LARC score index is above 100%, that means that your RevPAR may be on par with everybody, but your location is superior. So something's wrong, right? That means either the asset needs upgrading, the brand isn't generating what your peers are doing, or management is inferior. And on the flip side, if your LARC score is below 100% and your RevPAR index is 100%, then that means you're over penetrating your location, driven by maybe it's better management, maybe it's better brand, or maybe it's a better quality asset. But the ability to take the location out of the equation, and what I think can be really interesting is when you're looking at a new deal and you're thinking about a potential, you know, this is a hotel that needs to be that needs to be converted, and you know, whether it be up-branded or put capital in, management change, you can run all those metrics. You can get a better sense of what might make sense, but you're also going to be able to say, hey, you know, this location is actually vastly inferior to the comp set. Even if we do all those things, I'm not confident we're going to get to a 100% RevPAR index. Or maybe the location is vastly superior, and you can actually quantify the fact that you're going to get to 20% above the comp set RevPAR index. 100, you know, comp set RevPAR once you bring the asset up to comparable standards for all those key metrics. So it's just an interesting way to kind of take a look at how location can impact your performance and take that out of the equation, or at least account for it in your forecasting.
And another thing, so let's say, for example, you have more than 3. I added a couple of other assets to this comparison list. You can toggle back and forth. You know, let's say now you want to look at, you're still interested in these 2 roadway ends, but you want to see what that Best Western looks like in that. So you can toggle back and forth. That's just visually while you're looking at these the side-by-side comparison. But if you X out of that, and another thing, you can go over here and click download data, and that will give you an Excel spreadsheet that will include all of the assets that you put into that list. So that'll just download an Excel file. I'm going to open this up so you can sort of see it a little bit.
And that Excel file will give you all of the data, not just about the hotels and about and the trade areas and the things that you see in the application, but even some of the background data, like you've got economic activity and then you have economic activity per room as an example. So you get to see both metrics in the downloads, which can be helpful.
And you also get it for the 5-minute and the 15-minute. All of the data, both for the 5-minute and the 15-minute drive time locations are included. So it just
or
goes
whatever
on
the
and on.
trade area you determine you're analyzing your assets on. It'll give it for that trade area. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty comprehensive. And in this list, you also have the ability to edit the comparison list. So say you're in the middle of a comparison list, but you really don't want this Best Western in there. You can click on that and you can remove that list. You could also just remove the list entirely. So that's how you can compare, and you can either see that data side by side, or you can just download the whole thing into an Excel file. Now, another feature, in addition to just comparing assets to assets, let's say that you're interested in in comparing some unimproved land. Maybe you have a location that you're interested in and you want to see how that compares to the assets in the area. In this case, I have used my saved features, and I'm going to an address that I have that, but again, you can just click in the search bar and click location instead of hotel and type in that address. In this case, I'm using one in Missouri that I have as a plot of land. So once you've got that location, you can visually look at it by scrolling in. I'm also going to change my satellite view so that I can get a feel for what that looks like on the ground. As you can see, this is an open space, but I also kind of want to keep my mind on what the data is. And then here are a couple of assets in the area. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on this. Let me get this address again. I'm going to click on this. It's not giving me the ad. Hang on, let me try this again. So now I've got the location, add to comparison list. So I'm going to click that, add that to the comparison list. I'm going to zoom in to see what assets are in the area. And I see these 2 assets. So I'm going to click on this one, click more info, add that to the comparison list. I'm going to click another one, more info, add that to the comparison list. So now I have 2 assets and my unimproved land. Again, same process. You go to compare sites. You've got your custom location, which is the pinpoint that you located with the demand data of that location and how that LARC score compares to these other to these other assets in the area. So you can look at that. And again, you can look at your 5-minute, your 15-minute. You still have the same capability to filter for scale or brand. Or you can, again, go back and download the data, and you'll get an Excel spreadsheet that will give you the demand data on your desired location as well as the assets in that area. So this top figure is going to be your unimproved land, but you'll get metrics for that as well. So you can sort of get a sense of what that location looks like. And the last sort of ideal use case that I'm going to show you is, I'm going to get rid of some of these windows, is let's say that you're looking for hotels. You want a search filter tool. So you're looking for hotels that match a specific criteria. So when you go, again, back up to this search bar, down here, there is find hotels that match specific criteria. So you just click on that, and that's going to open up a filter tool for you. So in this case, we're going to say we're looking for LARC scores of 70 or above. Let's look at scale. Maybe we want to look at luxury. And then we'll say, let's look at a room count of over 200.
And to give you guys an idea, while Ramona's doing that, the markets and submarket options are tied to STR submarket and market definitions. So just type in any one of those and it'll pop up. We tie them directly to STR, which we think makes things simple for the user.
So if you use just a broad spectrum for across the country, in this case, you're going to see that we've got 284 hotels that match the 70 or higher luxury, more than 200 rooms. Over here, you can click to descending order so that you can see the top. So if you want to just see sort of the top 5 hotels, and you could click this to add any number of these to a comparison list and then download that report. But let's say you don't want to look at 284 hotels. You want to look in a specific market. As Ryan mentioned, you can add a market or submarket. And in this case, I'm just going to choose market and let's say New Orleans. So that will, then you click find hotels. Now you've got 4 hotels that match your criteria because you've narrowed it down to a specific market, or you could choose a submarket. So now you're going to do the same comparison process. It's just as simple as clicking these 4 plus signs. You can either, again, look at that comparison list visually on a side-by-side, compare insights. And again, you'll have your 3, but you can easily toggle back and forth between any of the others.
You can also download all of the data from your query, up to 1,000 rows.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have that visually, or you can go over here to download data.
How often is the asset data refreshed?
Every quarter.
Every quarter. Okay, great. Thanks.
And yeah, so depending on how broad your search is, you can, like I said, you can download a fairly extensive list and as a spreadsheet.
And Ryan, you mentioned looking at existing comp sets through this lens, but I would think also even perhaps more valuable creating a new comp set for a hotel. There's got to be a way to use this to kind of determine what are the best comps to get as close to what you'd call an A-rated comp set, right? In terms of.
That's a great point. And I think if you think about a hotel that, trying to align, the leisure versus corporate versus group demand segments, and trying to get a sense of which hotels are you competing most with for the leisure segment based on proximity to the leisure demand drivers that you're also targeting, that would make sense if you kind of try to isolate comps from that perspective. But beyond that, oftentimes there will be assets that have vastly different quality locations, but will be in the same comp set because STR requires it for one reason or another, or because the brand dynamics, et cetera, force you to go further out. This would enable you to at least analyze those or choose to exclude them however you wanted. But I don't think this is a replacement for a lot of the STR comp set type star report data. It's more a tool that can be used in conjunction with them to either fine tune it or to really develop some contrasting data points that might make things really interesting to make some informed decisions about how you want to invest and the quality of operations or the quality of brands, things like that.
Even outside of that, when you're making pricing, when you're programming your pricing comp set, right? Not for the purpose of star, but for the purpose of, like you said, if I'm looking for leisure business, who am I competing with?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
Also, when I was thinking of another thing, when you're looking at the map as a whole and you're looking at these clusters of the assets, you can, if let's say, for example, you only want to see construction. If you click to where you're only looking at construction, now you're looking at concentrations of construction assets. The same is true if you really want to just look at convention centers, you can do that too. So that way you can sort of, if you're looking for areas of interest. Or you're looking for clusters,
Looking
or
at that, if you just look at Texas right there,
yeah,
we got 63 convention centers across the state of Texas.
yeah.
It's pretty staggering the amount of data that we have for some of that you just don't have anywhere else.
And also, as you get into these more granular geographies, then you can really zoom in and you'll see, where your assets are clustered. So I think that's most of the features. I just want to give you a good sense of the layout of the application and some things that you can do to answer some questions that you're looking to solve. Do you have any other questions that we can address? And Ryan, is there anything I missed?
No, I think you hit pretty much everything on the head. Hopefully you guys will have a chance to jump in and play around with it. I think it's a pretty spectacular tool that's going to give you access to data that you have never seen before and frankly probably aren't as comfortable using yet. But the more you dig in, you'll be able to harness the true power. And I think it's gonna change the industry, but I'm a little biased. That being said,
So,
as always,
Ryan,
if you need, yep, go ahead, Pete.
I do have a question, Ryan. So in 2023, cookies and cookie data is going to change dramatically to be more aligned with what we see. I'm assuming that a lot of this information is being pulled, through what cell phone usage, things like. I mean, I just know that,
Less than you think, but there is some.
right. Are you concerned about when cookies change and it's going to be more like GDPR in Europe?
No,
Adopt
because we're not relying enough on mobility data and things like that. Frankly, we don't trust the mobility data enough to really rely on it.
Right.
Our leisure demand data does have mobility as a component, but keep in mind that's data that's been tracked since the mid to late 90s before mobility data, for 20 years before mobility data was a thing. So mobility data helps enhance it, but it's not the only thing that goes into it. A lot of the data that we've got is far beyond that. So, GIS data, the reality is, the GIS is a platform that's been used for academia probably since the 80s, in general real estate probably since the early 2000s, but it hasn't moved into hotels because the data is so different for hotels where population density, local household income, things like that impact where you want to put a grocery store or a retail store don't have much impact on where you want to build a hotel.
Right.
So all that data has been around for years. We're just harnessing it in a different way with this tool, which is something that I built initially on a one-off basis back in 2010, and then we spent the last 18 months really building this specific interactive tool. But no, so it doesn't concern us in the least. Any other questions from anybody? All right, then. Well, thanks for taking the time to learn a little bit more. Please dive in, get comfortable with the tool. If you have questions, you all know how to get a hold of me. Happy to engage in any way we can, and we hope you guys start to see a lot of benefit from this. We think it's going to be pretty spectacular. Thanks so much for joining. Have a great day, and thank you, Ramona, for running the training.
Thank you so much.
Great stuff, Ryan. Thank you.